All right, huge weekend for South Carolina athletics. Baseball heads to Starkville. Basketball lands a top 4 transfer portal class, and the women's basketball team heads to Tampa for the Final Four. We talk with Caroline Fenton from Yahoo Sports about the chances South Carolina can repeat, or if they're going to pass the torch to Texas in a losing effort. Locked On Gamecocks starts right now.
You are Locked On Gamecocks, your daily podcast on the South Carolina Gamecocks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, guys? Welcome into Locked On Gamecocks. I'm your host, Chris Marler. Hope you are having a fantastic Friday and a good start to the weekend. It's a huge weekend for South Carolina and South Carolina sports especially. Before we get into the show, I want to say thank you to everyone making Locked On Gamecocks your first listen each and every day. Shout out to our everydayers. Remember, we're a free and available podcast wherever you get your podcasts, as well as on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Now, today's episode brought to you by our friends at 5-Hour Energy. Head to 5hourenergy.com to find over 15 flavors to choose from. And if you need one now, grab a 5-Hour Energy shot at your local grocery or convenience store. Stock up today and stay energized. Now, let's get into the show today. We have a lot to talk about. We're going to start with an interview with a good friend, Caroline Fenton from Yahoo Sports, and breaking down the women's Final Four as a whole, and as well as the Friday night game tonight between Texas and South Carolina. Little bit concerning. The line has dropped all the way down to 4 points in favor of South Carolina. It's one of the lowest lines they've had in the last 2 years during this run. Is this a situation where they can repeat, or are they vulnerable enough to where if Texas wins, it is not only a loss, but a passing of the torch for South Carolina as the premier dynasty in women's basketball? We talked to Caroline Fenton now to get her thoughts on all the above. All right, welcome in, Caroline Fenton from Yahoo Sports. So official, by the way. Just watching the job change has been awesome. All your success has been awesome. And we're happy to have you on the show.
Happy to be here. I normally have you on my show on Sirius XM, so it's nice that the tables have turned. I'm pumped to be here.
Yeah, I got Dari Noka. He's gonna sneak over here in a second. He's gonna only ask questions about one-hit wonders.
On site, you have him there. He's at your house.
Yeah, exactly.
He's doing a brunch
in Atlanta.
Hi, Dari.
We had a guys' night last night. When he wakes up, I'll tell him
to the cheetah. You and Dari.
They have a 5-star chef.
So I've heard.
Yeah. So listen, women's Final Four starts. We're recording this on Thursday. It starts Friday night. Obviously, it's a weird. I feel weird, especially from the South Carolina standpoint going into it, because this is usually when they're hitting stride, and we all know what's on the line. We know how big the games get, and the women's Final Four has always been, I feel like, almost more competitive and more must see TV a lot of years than the men's Final Four. Not the whole tournament, but the women's Final Four specifically. But going into the last couple of games, not a ton of confidence in South Carolina, just based off of how shaky they have looked for most of the last 2 games. Give me your objective opinion about South Carolina heading into the Final Four and their chances, where you would rate their chances and confidence in them being able to win back-to-back natties.
Yeah, and I think you're totally spot on about the men's and women's Final Fours the last few years. I would say this year is probably the exception.
Yeah.
You get 4 1 seeds on the men's side and 4 legitimate national championship contenders. I saw something that was these 4 teams on the men's side in the Final Four are 4 of the top 10 greatest teams of all time in terms of Ken Pom. That's insane.
Unbelievable. I wish they would just do series. Just do honestly, just do a best of 7, and I would be here for it all day.
I would love it if they all got trophies, frankly, because it's just it's not fair that 3 of them have to fall short of a national championship. But it's the men's side is finally reflecting what we've gotten from the women's side the past few years. It's, oh, look, all of the best teams in the country are competing for a championship. Crazy how fun that is to watch.
Right.
I think that it feels different, and you don't have as much confidence about South Carolina because this is just a different South Carolina team. Last year, South Carolina was undefeated. South Carolina just mopped the floor with essentially everyone. And I didn't want to say that they made getting to the Final Four look easy, but they kind of did in a way. And I know it's not easy, but they kind of made it look easy. So this year is different because you had 3 regular season losses. And one of those losses was an absolute absolute blowout at Colonial
home.
Life at home. Like, it doesn't happen.
Yeah.
So I think it just feels a little bit different because whenever the expectation is perfection and you fall a hair short of that, it's like, what's going on? My goodness.
Right.
That doesn't mean that this isn't a national championship contending South Carolina team. It feels different because, in my opinion at least, because South Carolina doesn't have that big. Like, South Carolina doesn't have that Camila Cardoso, that Aaliyah Boston, that Asia Wilson. Like, your back's against the wall. You don't have that kind of go-to person. And it's the same thing that gives me confidence in South Carolina that kind of gives me a pause about South Carolina.
Completely agree. That's why I think I said it in less eloquent way on last night's episode. It's like it's a strength and a weakness at the same time, but you just feel weird about it.
It feels weird that you have a different leading scorer in every game of the tournament so far. Like, that is so impressive. That is so wild. That shows a certain kind of depth that is just unmatched by anyone in all of women's college basketball. But also, when your back is against the wall, when you're playing Texas for the freaking fourth time this season, when you need a bucket, who do you go to?
That's what I keep saying. Yeah.
And so it's kind of a weird dichotomy. I picked South Carolina to win the national championship at the beginning of the tournament because it's easy to trust them. It's easy to trust Dawn Staley. And the most important thing this time of year is depth. And South Carolina has more depth than anyone. But now that we're standing here, I still feel very confident in that pick, but it's the same thing that's helping them that's kind of hurting them at the same time. I think the biggest key here to get to the national championship, to win a national championship, is Mylasia Fulwiley hitting her shots. Like, is she 28-point Mylasia Fulwiley that we saw earlier in the tournament, or is she 4-point Mylasia Fulwiley that can't make a single bucket? So, and you could honestly apply that to anyone. And is in foul trouble and is on the bench. So I have faith in Dawn Staley. If it does get to the point where we see Dawn Staley versus Gino Auriemma in the national championship game, I will put the mortgage that I do not have because I don't own a home, not in this economy, on South Carolina to win the national championship, because I know Dawn Staley's not going to let Gino Auriemma beat her twice in one season.
That would be, I mean, it just was so bizarre to watch that unfold, because it's like when South Carolina is the same, they're viewed the same as we watch Bama and under Saban, Kirby and Georgia and some of these teams. It's like you're just waiting for them to turn it on, and it just never happened. And there's been moments the past two games where you're I keep bringing this up. They didn't score a single bucket from 6.5 minutes to go in the second quarter till the 8-minute mark in the third quarter. So it almost looks like they're used to getting punched in the mouth a little bit this season because obviously the losses, but there's still this weird looking around hey, who's going to step up? And who do we go to? And it's been a different person each game, but it just worries me. It's because when you get to this part of the tournament, especially in the women's Final Four, you cannot have the off games that they've had the last couple times. I honestly, this sounds crazy. I keep saying I almost felt a sense of relief seeing Texas on the schedule and not a Maryland that can shoot the lights out from free throws and it's been hot and putting up a ton of points or anything like that, because at least it's a familiar foe, and you can get some confidence back knowing you've already beaten them twice.
That's kind of the difficult thing too, is, familiarity breeds contempt here.
Right.
So, obviously they're going to go into a game fired up and ready and pissed off, but also it's it just adds a little extra layer to it that you saw them in the SEC championship game, that you're seeing them for the fourth time this season. I talked to Dawn Staley on SiriusXM a couple days ago, and she said, and I asked her, is this a rivalry?
Yeah.
She was like, absolutely, yes, this is a rivalry. So I love that she's embracing that. And I know that that's going to be, kind of just rammed into their heads all week long of we hate this team. This team hates us. They're annoyed by us. We're annoyed by them. So I think that's a good thing. I kind of love that they're playing Texas, because I think that South Carolina is good against this style of basketball.
Yeah.
It's fair to feel uneasy about a 4-point win over Duke, but it's hard to blow out an opponent when you score 54 points.
Right.
Dawn Staley doesn't want to run up the score. She doesn't want to be Nate Oates in Alabama and hitting 50,000 threes a game. She doesn't want it to be
the next day.
And then tough scene there. But she doesn't want to win those 110 to 105 kind of games. She wants to win those defensive grinded out battles.
Yeah.
So does Vic Schaefer. So does Texas. The advantage that South Carolina had over Duke, though, because Duke plays insanely good defense, was just South Carolina just has better players.
Right.
South Carolina is bigger. They're more physical. They're more deep. They're just better. And that was on full display against Duke. That's not the case against Texas. Like,
Right.
yes, like Texas can go pound for pound, player for player against South Carolina. So can they keep up those defensive efforts? And when they need a clutch three, when they need a clutch bucket, when they, absolutely need a foul here and there, can they do it against Texas? We've seen them do it twice before now.
Yeah. Fenton, I told you 10 minutes, and we've done 2 questions, which is pretty par for the course every time we talk in one of these. Can you give us 5 more minutes?
Of course.
Okay, I'm going to do a quick ad read. I want you not to listen because I'm going to get nervous if you do, and we'll be right back. Hold on, I got to remove you. All right, guys. Again, thank you for tuning in, Locked On Gamecocks. The final part of the show today, after we talk with Caroline Fenton, remember we have a baseball preview series against Mississippi State. We also have the men's basketball team is in the top 5 class in the transfer portal, and much, much more. So make sure you stay tuned to the end of the episode. Locked On Gamecocks continues next. All right, we're back with Caroline Fenton. We got 5 more minutes. We're in overtime here. God, I hate that dad joke. That's bad.
That's okay.
So let me ask you this. And you talked about Dawn Staley and your trust in her, especially in a big game like this. I try to wrap my head around this, and I keep saying I'm going to dive into it one day, but I feel like it's hard to do from this platform and not be looked at as like a homer. So I want to ask you, realistically speaking, not being a person of the moment or what we're talking about, if you were to rank the head coaches of all sports across the SEC, where does Dawn Staley rank? Because it has to be 1, 2, or 3, and I feel like it's probably not 2 or 3.
It's, are we talking all sports? Because I think if we're talking about championships, Patty Gasso, the softball coach at Oklahoma, who has won 4 consecutive national championships and has lost a game in the last 4 years, then she would have to be in consideration. Yeah. It's tough to compare sport to sport because I think it's fair to say it's really hard to win a national championship in basketball, men's, women's, whatever it might be. March is really hard, especially with how deep the SEC is on both the men's and the women's sides. I think there's a very fair argument to be made that Dawn Staley is a top 3 coach in the SEC. I think Kirby Smart is in that conversation. Just in terms, Hugh Freeze is really good too. At a lot of different things. Versatile and
communications.
Relationships. He's a good relationship builder. But it's okay, then how do you define good coach? Because I think Sark is one of the best coaches in college football, but he doesn't have a national championship. But so, we could talk about this literally all day long. We could do an entire 3-hour radio show on this, which is great because we have all that time here on this podcast. But I think just without thinking too much about it, just my initial reaction, yes, Dawn Staley is a top 3 coach in the SEC in all sports, period. I think that Dawn Staley is a top 2 coach in women's college basketball. I think it would be between her and Gino Auriemma. And it's really just kind of pick your poison there.
Yeah, I agree with that. And admittedly, I forgot about Oklahoma softball because they're new to the conference. And we just haven't women's softball, like college softball is so fun. And the Women's College World Series, I feel like is up there with some of the best theater we get in all of college sports every year. But I haven't seen it as much this year because I think it's because usually basketball is fine. There's 1 or 2 good teams late in the run, but this year's just been every sport has been packed top to bottom. All right. Last question about the Final Four. What is one storyline we aren't talking enough about?
Ooh, one storyline that we're not talking enough about. I think it's the supplementary scorers. We focus very rightfully so on the stars in this sport. That's part of the reason why women's basketball in general is growing, is because we're falling in love with these characters and these stories. We're falling in love with Caitlin Clark. We're falling in love with Angel Reese, with Paige Beckers.
None of those 3, I don't think this fan base is falling in love with necessarily, but yes, I agree.
The general population, I know that some Gamecock fans were like, Angel Reese, closing the podcast. Sorry. But we're falling in love with Paige Beckers. We've fallen in love with Juju Watkins. We've fallen in love with Lauren Betts and, all Wooden Award finalists and all very rightfully so. I don't think UConn would be where they are without Sarah Strong or without AZ Fudd. They wouldn't be here without Paige Beckers also, but that Batman also kind of needs her Robin. It's the same thing at UCLA. Lauren Betts is there she is their heart and soul.
Yeah.
She is their wagon. She is the engine that keeps them going. But they would not be here without Gabriela Jaquez and Kiki Rice.
Right.
Texas, it's Madison Booker, but it's also Rory Harmon.
Yeah.
When Madison Booker was, very silent offensively against TCU in the first half, Rory Harmon was their leading scorer in the first half. And then Madison Booker turned on in the second. South Carolina, I would say, is that one exception because they don't, I believe, have that one star. It's just all of them are contributing factors. But I think that we need to be talking a little bit more about not just the face of the program, but also all of the other pieces that are going to help them to get there. Because I think it's Dawn Staley's game plan. We're not going to let Maddie Booker beat us. Can Rory Harmon do it? I think that UCLA's game plan is going to be, we're not going to let Paige Beckers beat us. Good luck with that. But can Sarah Strong and AZ Fun kind of carry the rest of the load? So keep an eye on some of those. I don't want to say 2s and 3s, but like your supplementary scores.
I think, we don't have to get into this because but it is kind of fascinating to think about. Like maybe that's just the next iteration of like the development and like evolution of this sport, like specifically because when I was like, I'm older. So like growing up, like, women's college basketball was all Tennessee, UConn, and it was just like the head coaches. Like the head coaches were the stars, and there were only 2 of them. And then now you start getting teams and brands and like national teams, and like start seeing that spread across the country. And there's like more blue bloods. I feel like that are a factor. And now you start getting actual star power. South Carolina fans you will not like hearing this, earmuff it, but like I remember I got the Peacock streaming platform, whatever, last year. It was like $7 a month. Strictly for extended office episodes, like extended cut office episodes, fantastic. And then also Big Ten women's basketball, so I could watch Caitlin Clark on Sundays. It was a lot of fun. So
it's must-see TV.
Yeah, agreed. So, all right, let's get into the final part of this, I promise, and we'll let you go. 3 rapid-fire questions. I called it 3 in the key, another dad joke. This Final Four is being held in Tampa.
Yes.
Tampa I just feel like for whatever reason, everyone in Tampa is like born with like a goatee and like white Oakley sunglasses. So it's a lovely city, but
jorts.
Yeah, like fashionable jorts, like bedazzled jorts.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
A lot of Kohl's Cash Rich down there.
Airbrush t-shirts, but like that have like little like beads on the little fringe on the bottom. So like airbrush, but like make it chic.
Tampa feels like if Myrtle Beach like got into crypto early and like made a ton of money from it. So, but my question is, what is your favorite destination city for a sporting event?
New Orleans.
Yeah, I figured
it's New Orleans. And look, like full disclosure, I went to LSU. I love New Orleans. I love the state of Louisiana. I love the city of New Orleans. I always have. I've always had a very soft spot in my heart for New Orleans. But I was at the Super Bowl a couple months ago, and the fact that everything was so close, like I could walk from Radio Row to my hotel, to the Superdome, to dinner, to drinks, to all of the parties that were happening. And I was passing people along the way. In Phoenix, in Vegas, in San Francisco, where the Super Bowl is next year, you can't do that. Like Dallas, Houston, you can't do that.
Right.
And New Orleans is a freaking party. Obviously. It's a town, it's a city that knows how to do celebrations. Tampa has a little bit of a similar vibe in the proximity of things. Yeah. Like I'm staying at a hotel. I can walk to the arena. I can walk places. I've run into a bunch of people from, the NCAA and that are covering the tournament are staying at my hotel. So it has that like proximity vibe. Obviously not the party vibe, but New Orleans for sure.
I just want to know who from Indianapolis and San Antonio got their foot in the door so early, because San Antonio, it's like every other year. It's for the men's Final Four this year. So, all right, next question. South Carolina wins how many football games next season?
Can I pull up their schedule? Is that cheating?
It's supposed to be a very rapid fire question. We are not good at this game.
I've never been good at, getting a thought out quickly. I say 9, just based off of vibes, based off of feeling. I think South Carolina is going to be, Marla, you know how it works at SEC Media Days. There becomes those kind of consistent themes, consistent questions, teams that everyone's talking about. I think the sexy teams that we're going to be talking about, the kind of like hipster picks, I'm not going to pick Georgia, is going to be South Carolina. It's going to be Florida, and has everything to do with DJ Lagway and Lenora Sellers.
Yeah. I honestly hate that, because it's like, I was telling someone the other day, the concern there is like all of the things that we all knew they weren't talking enough about last year, the defense, even Worry, Kyle Kennard, like all the returning starters they had coming back from that. And then Lenore's like his like abilities. Those were all the strengths. And then like you kind of like take on the SEC by storm at the latter half of the season. Now everyone assumes that like, you're just going to be back because you return Sellers. Like you lose all of those other pieces on defense. So it's like, I wish that they would fly under the radar. That's a little bit where they're more dangerous. Last question.
Yes.
And it was going to be, since April Fool's was 2 days ago, I was going to ask you what your favorite joke is, but we all know your favorite joke was the officiating from the LSU South Carolina game last fall.
Oh, there it is.
I'm proud of that one. Finger gun.
Let's cry about officiating. Like people in Louisiana have never been at the butt of the joke of officiating. And also that was totally, absolutely 100% roughing the passer. Like you can't just pancake the quarterback just because he takes a couple steps toward the ball. They gave up, a 17-point lead at half?
Why are you doing this? It was a simple joke.
If you want to win games, play defense, okay? So my sister went to South Carolina. My sister could care less about sports. Like, literally, like
my sister went to South Carolina, and same thing.
Yeah, like, what is it with people in South Carolina? No, like she goes to football games for beers and hot dogs, and that's about it. And we love that about her. But she was like, so I heard we got screwed in that LSU game, and I was like, how did you hear that? What do you mean I heard? Were you listening to Locked On Gamecocks?
I appreciate that. It's a good save there at the end. Okay, final question. This has been going around. I told you about it off air earlier. The Masters dinner that Scotty Scheffler chose, which was just like a copy and paste from like the year before. And
it's also just so like Texas.
Yeah.
Like Texas,
all of it.
Barbecue and a chocolate chip cookie.
The chocolate chip cookie thing.
America.
Like, I just love how they dressed it up. It very much was like, hey, ChatGPT, I have to hit a word count for how like make this sound fancy. It's super nice. It's like, no, it's Man's Cheesecake Factory. So what would your Masters dinner be? Give me just appetizer, entree, dessert.
Appetizer would be a truffle oil tuna crudo.
That's I have so many words I have to Google. Okay.
Well, see, say that Scotty Scheffler's doing the same thing. I'm trying to just zhuzh it up a little bit. It's just raw fish and truffle oil. My entree, would probably be my favorite restaurant in the whole entire world. It's where I'm from in St. Louis, called Paul Mano's. They have the best rack of lamb, and it's like lemon and caper and olive oil. It's like perfectly crispy. We get rack of lamb, but not just any rack of lamb. Paul Mano's rack of lamb.
Okay.
And then my dessert would probably be tiramisu.
Oh, that you're like a lot fancier than I realized. I did not see any of those answers coming. Rack of lamb.
It's delicious. It's like that's my death row meal for sure.
I remember.
And a dirty martini on the side.
That's fair. Did they let you do that? Did they let you drink alcohol before they put you to death?
Well, they should.
The show is taking a turn. The show is definitely taking a turn.
Well,
today.
Do they let you drink alcohol at the Masters? Surely.
I don't know.
I've never seen like a drink menu on any of these menus.
On our next episode, we're going to dive into the world of last meals on death row. All right, Fenton, tell everyone where they can find you. You have been incredible. I appreciate you staying on for longer and talking about nonsense. And we'll have to do it again.
I will always talk about nonsense. You can find me Yahoo Sports. We're on your preferred podcast platform, Yahoo Sports, YouTube, sports.yahoo.com. I host the college football and college basketball power hours. I'm also on SiriusXM, SEC, and college sports radio, so you can check me out there.
Definitely do. She does a great job. All right, Fenton, we'll talk to you soon.
Awesome. Appreciate you.
All right, awesome to have Caroline on and join us for that long. Shockingly, we went over the time we thought we were going to do, but great to have her on, like I said. Before we get into our next segment, we talk about the men's basketball top 5 transfer portal class. Lamont Paris and company have been on fire, and also preview the baseball series this weekend in Starkville against Mississippi State. Before we do all that, I want to give a quick shout out to our friends at Fabric. You guys have heard me talk about Fabric before. Like I always say, you're going to hear me talk about them again. Life moves fast, especially when you have a family. And one day you're watching your kids take their first steps, and before you know it, they're off to college. That's why securing their future is so important. Fabric by Gerber Life makes it simple to get term life insurance that fits your family's needs. With Fabric, you can apply for term life insurance online right from your couch, and you can be covered in under 10 minutes. And in many cases, no health exam is even required. As a parent, it would be super helpful to have that kind of peace of mind about your child's future. You can also get $1 million in coverage for less than $1 a day, so protecting your loved ones doesn't have to break the bank. Join the thousands of parents right now who trust fabric to help protect their families, and apply today in just minutes at meetfabric.com/lockedoncollege. That's meetfabric.com/lockedoncollege. Policies issued by Western Southern Life Assurance Company, not available in certain states. Price subjects to underwriting and health questions. Also, want to give a shout out to our friends at Prize Picks. Prize Picks had a fun weekend using Prize Picks last week in the second weekend of March Madness. I urge you to do the same. Baseball season now is in full swing, and there's no better way to get on the action than with Prize Picks, the best place for daily fantasy sports. With Prize Picks, you can pick more or less on at least 2 player projections, and if you're right, you can win up to 1,000 times your cash. Whether it's strikeouts, RBIs, or first inning runs, Prize Picks keeps every game exciting. Building my lineup, I'll tell you what, this week, I'm not going to bet on Aaron Judge and his torpedo bat or whatever that is. What I will do is probably take some of the player points in the Final Four. Did it all week last week. And the coolest thing about it, not only do I get to see the money I win right away, they give me up-to-the-minute updates on all of my bets, which players are where, how many more points, rebounds, or anything else each one needs. It's all at your fingertips, and it's one of the best features on the app. Also, your money, you get it right away. Download the app today and use the code LOCKEDONCollege to get $50 off, $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONCollege for $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. Run your game. All right. We are back, and we are talking some men's basketball now. I know there's a big game tonight in women's basketball, but the men's team is killed the offseason so far. Lamont Paris and company went into the portal with intentions, and they have built a strong start to building the roster for next year. If you have been keeping up with it, I'm sure you have on social media. So far, South Carolina has 4 commits. Some of them are familiar faces. Some of them were surprises, but this staff has done a tremendous job of securing 4 different players. That includes Trayson Eaglestaff, we talked about the other day from North Dakota State, Christ Esendoko from Providence. Then the news that came out, I think we talked about it briefly, that the rumors were that it might happen, and then it did go final. That Meechie Johnson is coming back to South Carolina. And then last night, or sometime during the afternoon, on Wednesday afternoon, Kobe Knox from USF also ends up committing to South Carolina. Now, listen, they've lost some players. They've lost some players that were kind of surprises a little bit. There's a couple of head scratches in there. There's a couple I think that are good opportunities to go somewhere else. Arden Conyers, that was surprising to me, but I'm not gonna sit here and weigh in on why it happened, or the portal provides opportunities for so many different players, and it's great. And what you hope for is that it works out best for everybody. And either way, not anything just diminish their time here, but we're going to focus on the players coming in more than the players going out. And I think the Meechie Johnson news is one of the more exciting things that's happened around this team, because I think more than anything, you just want some sort of semblance and feeling of what you had in the 2024 team and that run and the way that team was built, because it was such a surprise. That team was so good all season long to go 13-5 in SEC play, and in year one under Lamont Paris, it feels good just to have a familiar face. I don't know how impactful he will be. He was the leading scorer on that team, scoring over 13 points a game. Did not, enjoy his decision. I think going to Columbus. There's a lot of other stuff when he went to Ohio State that factored in. I think it's some personal stuff that he's been very open and transparent about of what he's trying to work through, and things that a lot of us face, and depression, stuff like that. So I'm excited that he's coming back, and mainly just because of what that announcement, I hate to use this word, but the vibes and an energy that it brought to the fan base. He was welcomed back with open arms. It should be a great final year for him coming back to Columbia. The other ones, man, listen, we talked about Eaglestaff. We talked about Esendoko. The Esendoko thing kind of weighing in on that a little bit more than we did the other day. Kid has tremendous upside. They do have a little bit of concern about his weight. I think he's 7 feet 290. They want to get him in a little bit better shape than what he is currently. But he wasn't anything that bad happened. He just did not enjoy the coaching style of of Kim English at Providence. Like, listen, I love Kim English. I loved him when he was at Mizzou. Fantastic player, really smart kid, or now I guess grown man. But some coaches and players just don't mesh, and hopefully him and Lamont will. So the latest one though, Kobe Knox, kid that's from Don Bosco Prep out of high school in Tampa, 3-star recruit in the portal. He was a 0-star recruit out of high school. Had some offers, but he was a 0-star recruit, and then lo and behold, he goes to USF and has a phenomenal year. And now he is a 3-star recruit, 225th ranked player in the portal, and the 62nd ranked shooting guard. Now, here's the deal. All right, so Knox the numbers aren't going to blow you away by any means, but 6'5" shooting guard, shot 33% from deep, near 78% from the line, averaged over 10.8 points per game. And more importantly, scored in double digits in 18 games this year, I think out of 34 in the 30 that he played in. That includes 9 of the last 15 to close out the year. So a really strong close of the season. I think the message, again, is clear. Like, size and shooters. That's what Lamont wants for next season. Size and shooters. There were so many times this year where it's like the 3-point shooting especially was inexplicably bad and just like there was a cover on the rim or something like that. So being able to get a guy, 33% isn't some crazy, impressive number, but being able to get to the rim, being able to put up double digits. He's also a kid that played at Grand Canyon his freshman year, which is a team that went to the tournament. And he's played like that's the other part too, is the experience that he's had in his first 2 seasons in college. He's got let's see here, played in 34 games as a freshman and then 30 games last season for USF. So in 2 years, he's played in 34 games, averaged 28 minutes per game, which is also big. And he has some bloodlines to the NBA as well. His dad played football at Florida State, and his older brother was the 9th pick in the 2018 NBA draft. His younger brother actually played for Arkansas this year. So very athletic family. But you get him. He's from Tampa Catholic, where Janai Broom is from. Also, our producer, Allie, her entire family went there, so that's nice. All in all, I don't think he is the star of the class by any means, but it's a great addition that they wanted, and so did other teams. And they were the rumor was if they were able to get him on campus, he was going to commit there. It was just a matter of getting him on campus and him avoiding other visits. He did, and then they did. So 4 players signed in the portal in the first weekend, little over a week that it's been open. The numbers that have come out from some of the signing, I don't know what Carolina is spending, but that number that we talked about with Colin Murray Boyles that's still on the high side of what a lot of prospects are getting, but you're hearing $2 million, $3 million repeatedly for several big players in the portal. So tremendous job. I think what impresses me most is not only being able to identify the players you want, going back and getting like Beach Johnson, really the steal of the entire country with Trace and Eaglestaff, because that was a guy that was like a not so well kept secret from a lot of people that watch college basketball this year. So tremendous job there. You've got some scores, you've got some size, and you got a fresh start. I think the most impressive part of all of it, this is the same kind of really with LSU, is those are the 2 worst programs in the SEC this year. They were dead last, 15th and 16th in the SEC. LSU had 3 SEC wins. South Carolina had 2. Those 2 teams are both currently ranked in the top 5 of the transfer portal rankings. Like the investment into the athletics, like across the board, is noticeable, and it's pretty awesome to see that, especially for a team that like could probably spend even more on football or give a little bit more deserving to women's basketball, like being able to allocate this money for Lamont Paris, because he deserves it. Like, I know this year was terrible, but you can't forget what he did in year 1, going 13-5 in the league. What's also impressive is the teams that are surrounding them are teams that are like St. John's. You expect to be up there with what they're trying to do basketball wise, and they're also a program that doesn't have a football team that they're going to spend any money on. So they're obviously going to be up there. Louisville's the same way. Louisville is the 2nd ranked class in the country right now, and that is a program that has been open about not only spending it's like near the highest and talking about $10 million. Some of those like Kansas and Arkansas, $15 million is what they're going to put into their class. Those are the teams that South Carolina is currently ranked with at the top: Indiana, Michigan, Creighton, Ole Miss, rounding out the top 10. Just really impressed with what not only with Lamont Paris and the staff have done, but what the commitment is to him moving forward. All right. Before we close out the show, I do want to give a quick shout out to one more friend of the pod. You guys know we love to do it. We got to pay the bills around here, and that is to 5 Hour Energy. I'm going to be partaking in a lot of 5 Hour Energies this weekend because we've got sports on all weekend long, and we've got some great sports coming up as well, starting Friday night. Daylight savings time snuck up on us again, and if you're feeling that lost hour of sleep, 5 Hour Energy has your back. The extra sunshine means more time for fun, but sometimes you need a little boost to power through. Whether you're staying up late, watching the tournament, squeezing in around a golf after work, make sure to keep up with your busy day. You have a 5 Hour Energy handy because it gives you that quick, refreshing pick-me-up whenever you need it. I've been staying up late watching the tournament action, like I told you, and maybe just you need a little bit extra, a little pep in your step or a little focus. So you can also, get some bets in with Prize Picks or any other stuff that's happening with March Madness. Or if you're staying up for an extra inning baseball game, I don't know, getting geared up for the Masters, all the above, make sure you have 5 Hour Energy at your disposal. Head to 5hourenergy.com to find over 15 flavors to choose from, including watermelon, blue raspberry, and peach mango. You can even build your own 12-pack or 24-pack delivered right to your door. If you need one now, grab a 5 Hour Energy shot at your local grocery store or convenience store. They are everywhere. Stock up today and stay energized. 5hourenergy.com. All right, we will be right back and close out the show and talk a little bit of baseball. All right, close out today's show. Longer episode than usual. I appreciate you guys tuning in. Baseball heads to Starkville. We'll keep it brief. Two teams that kind of mirror each other in terms of, in a lot of ways, really, when you think about it, like the record, they're both 1-8 in the league. Both had similar schedules that were very difficult out of the gates. LSU and Texas were two of the first three opponents that Mississippi State had. Obviously, South Carolina gets Arkansas and Tennessee right out of the gates as well. But two programs that also are looking to get back to where they used to be. The Mississippi State one, the fall off there is way more, not way more surprising necessarily, but like it's just more recent when they were so good. And what they are now is when they went from winning a national championship to not even making the SEC tournament in Hoover, which is tough to do. So this weekend, not a ton of things that stand out about them, like pretty middle of the road pitching staff, right around 8th in ERA. I think it's at 3.94. They do not surrender a ton of walks. The opponent batting average is around 211, which is low for sure. For South Carolina, the pitching has been up and down, kind of erratic. But the 4.74 ERA is not ideal. Let's see here. The fact that opponents are, hitting 236 against your pitchers is not like anything to be super concerned about. The strikeout numbers are fine, but you keep going back to the fact that you have 128 walks, which is near the top of any team in the SEC. I think Georgia's the only team with more, with 141, and that in combined hit batters, and their staff has been awful. Like that's like the one time you don't want to be mentioned in the same. That and driving, you don't want to be mentioned in the same sentence as Georgia. I still say this: there's a really good opportunity here that South Carolina can take advantage of and get back to or get some things rolling. And we should have been probably a little bit more. We should have probably tempered our expectations out of the gates of what this team was going to be facing. So, Arkansas and Tennessee are arguably the top two teams in the country. Oklahoma's a top 10 team, and you had to play all three of them right off the bat. And that's not making an excuse because the schedules are always hard in the SEC. But that Presbyterian win on Tuesday night was just to get the monkey off your back at the very least was huge. Was just huge. I know that it's Presbyterian, but that was a win that you had to have and you got. So carry that over into a team that really just quite frankly doesn't know how to win right now and haven't for a while. It's a team that it feels like they have very few bright spots on their season. They got destroyed by LSU in almost all three games, giving up a ton of runs, a ton of hits. It's a different lineup at LSU than South Carolina. But regardless, you have a chance to go into Starkville, into probably the best venue and setting in all of college baseball, and go get a win. So figure out a way to start getting some positive things and positive momentum moving forward. We will talk about it after the weekend. That is all for today's episode. Hopefully we'll have another preview episode of the national championship game for South Carolina on Sunday. But regardless, we'll be back this weekend. Have a great Friday and start your weekend. Go Cox.